Hello everyone, in this video I'm going to show you how to create a non-blocking web application with Reactive Spring MVC. So for that I'm gonna go to first start.spring.io. From there I'll select Gradle project, programming language Java, use the latest version of Spring Boot, and then select the group name and artifact name, and I'm gonna select web. In this case I'm gonna use reactive web and use MongoDB and embedded MongoDB. So the reason why I'm going to use the reactive MongoDB, because as of now there is no JDBC driver, reactive JDBC driver for MySQL, so I'm going to use MongoDB. So let's generate, extract it to your convenient place and open it with your favorite IDE or editor. I'm going to use IntelliJ IDEA. The project is open on IntelliJ IDEA. I'm going to open the build.gradle file and make the embedded MongoDB as runtime only, and refresh the Gradle project. First I'm going to create the DAO class, in this case a book class. I'll use the ID field and name and author ID. I'll annotate it with ID and add the constructors and getters and setters. Next I'm going to create another class called author. Again the document annotation for MongoDB and two field only, ID and name. And annotate it with ID. Constructor and getters and setters. So next I'm going to create the repository. First book repository. So this is going to be an interface, and it extends, rather than JPA repository or CRUD repository, I'm going to use reactive CRUD repository. So similar to the JPA repository, I'm going to use the class first, in this case book, and the ID type, which is a string. So if we go into the reactive CRUD repository, you will see the familiar save all, find by ID method, but the difference is the return type and the parameter. So return type is mono. So in reactive world or non-blocking world, this Spring mono means zero, I mean null or one object, and when you see flux, it means zero or n number of element. So this is kind of the replacement of list. And publisher also takes one element or a list of element, and it can also return a publisher where you want to return single object or a list of elements. We'll see that in action in a few minutes. So let's close that and go back to the book repository. I'm going to create one method over here, and this method is going to return a flux, because I want to return a list of books. So flux of book, and the method name is find by author ID and parameter author ID. So that's all for this, and I'm gonna create another repository called author repository. This is similar. This is the interface which extends reactive CRUD repository, and here author and string as ID type and one method. But in this case I'm going to return mono because I want to get the author with a name. So I'm returning mono because I'm going to insert author in the database in a way so that there is no two author with the same name. Okay, next let's create the book controller. Here the familiar REST controller annotation and the request mapping. Request mapping will be books. Inside I'm going to auto add the to repository. First I'm going to create the get all method to get all the books from the database, and I'm going to use the publisher here. Simple get mapping, and it simply returns book repository dot find all, which is built-in method from the CRUD repository. And for adding new book we can use the post mapping. I'm gonna take book as a JSON object from the user with request body, and I can simply return book repository. Let's save book, like a non-reactive application, but this is going to be a non-blocking operation. And another thing we can do, which is a bit complex, which what I want to do here is get an author by ID, and using that author ID I will get all the books by that author. So let's do that. So this is going to be another get mapping, and the URL will be author name, another publisher of book. So you can actually use publisher over here as well. Get the path variable. So first I'm gonna get the author using the author repository. So this gives me author, and now I need to call the flat map many. So that's it. Here I used flat map many because if I destructure this, then you will see that this actually gives me a mono of author, but we don't need the mono of author. That is why I'm going to use the flat map, which flattens the map and returns me only author, which I need for this call. Okay, so that's it. That's for the coding part. And now to start the application with some initial value, I'm gonna add the command line runner. I'm gonna inject the both repository. And insert some value and delete the initial value. Add some books. So I'm inserting, first deleting all the information in the database, then adding 3 books, book 1 to 3 with author ID 1 and 2. So for author 1 there is 2 books, and for author 2 there is only 1 book. And next I added the author to author and subscribed it so that this operation executes, otherwise this won't execute. And finally just printed out uh, whatever the subscription gives me, which is going to give me a single object. Okay, so that's pretty much it. Now let's run the application. And I'm going to test the application using IntelliJ IDEA's built-in HTTP HTTP client, but you can use any client like Postman. So let's call the local host port 8080 and the endpoint, in our case it's books. So here for the first run it will download the embedded MongoDB. I'll pause the video and then come back when it is 100%. Okay, while it is downloading I can set up all the other calls over here. So I can do the post call, set the content type and the body, and for getting all the user by books, sorry, by author ID, and the author name is going to be author 1. Okay, so it downloaded everything and app is running. Now if I call this URL, I should get the list of books, which I do. And if I call the post with book 4 and author ID 1, so it added the book and returned the book. And finally we can get all the books by author name using this URL. and you can see book 1, 2, and 4 is coming. So this is the basics of Reactive Spring MVC application. Uh, there are a lot of things going on in the reactive world, but in this video I tried to show you the basics so that you can get up and running with reactive application. That's all for this video. I hope you liked it. If you have any question, feel free to ask in the comment below. The code for this video will be available on GitHub, and I'll post the link on the video description. So that's it. Have a nice day. Bye bye.